Mr. Pat. Hey, Miss Deb. Miss Pat messaged me a few days ago and was asking about a video of a little trick that I teach my horses. I started it just because I'm short and I had a really tall horse, and I wanted to figure out a way that I could get on him at any point in time. It's a pretty simple trick in the steps, but where it all comes down to is just like you guys in the saddle that you might be learning right now is feel. Learning your timing, when to reward the horse, because this is something that we're wanting them to naturally do on their own at will when we're asking to mount. So the chicken is who's going to help me first. He's been doing this for I guess about 3 years, and where I start with all of my horses, and I guess I'll start by saying roping the feet is huge. If you have not roped your horse's feet, or your horse is not used to things being caught around their legs or being okay with it, stop now. So that's one of the main things to start with is if you haven't roped your horse's feet, go ask Pat about that since you have him at your disposal. And I'm sure there's plenty of videos that he could point you towards in referencing that as well. So the first place that I'm going to start with my horses is we've got this nice yacht rope that I start with, and they've got a little snap on them that makes it to where they're pretty easy to go loose and tight on their own, because once I get to a point where my horse is comfortable with me mounting from a knee, I'm going to need that to just kind of fall off as I ride. So this is one of the main things that I'll just use. The one thing that you want to do is make sure you have your preparatory command to get your horse to start thinking about this. For all of my horses, I take my foot and I tap them on the front of the cannonbone. I'm not going to tap him right now because he'll just go right down. So I'm going to show you how we start a young one that's never had this done. So I start with getting a loop around that leg and basically just teaching the command. Tap, and then pick up and hold the leg. I don't want to go down just yet. So some horses may be totally fine with you tapping, picking up, holding the foot. Others may have to kind of get used to that, and that's totally fine. You have to find where your horse is comfortable and where they're ready for. The second step that you want to start working on is once you've developed the timing of when you tap, they pick their foot up and they're comfortable with holding it there with pressure on the rope, is then to start asking them to shift their weight back onto their hind end. Sometimes that's a little bit different for horses to understand. They may try to disengage their hindquarters. They may try to do some small evasions, but that's kind of where you kind of have to outlast him just a little bit and make sure that you're being clear on asking your horse, I just want you to back up. Sometimes horses will, just barely lean back, and you reward that, because if you've had a few minutes of they're trying to disengage or they're getting uncomfortable, you want to be able to reward that. They need to start thinking about putting that weight on that hind end, just like in the saddle, just like in all of our work that we want them to do. So you're developing, you're tapping, tap. We're getting to where they're comfortable with holding on to the foot, and then you're going to start asking for a little bit of pressure, and just like that, he leaned back just a little bit, and I gave to him, hey, thank you, I appreciate that. I want you to start thinking about shifting your weight backwards. So then you'll tap again, he picks up, and you'll say, hey, this time I want you to really lean back. And you may see he's really started leaning back, thinking about it, and you reward that. Every horse is different. Every horse is going to find a level of comfort that they're comfortable with, and this is not something that you're going to teach in a day. This is repetition. Over time, you're going to be working on this. I usually work on this with my young horses right before I get on, because it's just something that I want them to already be thinking about that before I get on. That's how I mount. So I want them to be thinking about everything right before I get on. So get them used to the rope on their foot, develop your command of picking up their leg, and then you want to start just comfortable with moving their weight downward. As time progresses, they will get to a point where they will be comfortable moving their weight down, and that's great. Sometimes horses are pretty dang comfortable with it and they'll go really fast down. That's okay for a little bit. We want them to just be comfortable with moving their body downward. As you start progressing, you're gonna, what? Feel, yeah. That's where your feel comes in, really. You're gonna feel where your horse is comfortable with on moving their body backwards. And, you know, just like that, if he's kind of getting over me, you know, every horse has their form of evasion. This is a seasoned horse. He's wondering why I have a rope on his leg right now. But as you keep going, you're just getting them to a point where they're more and more comfortable with shifting their weight backwards and coming down to one knee over time. Sometimes with my younger horses, if my horn has a saddle, or my saddle has a horn on it, I will use a rope as a little bit of leverage just around the horn. I'm not dallying around my horn. I'm not pressuring them into this because this is obviously something I want my horses to willingly do every single time. If I open 19 gates, they are going to get on the knee 19 times. I want them to be totally comfortable with it. Using the command and using the rope makes it separate from getting your farrier very upset with you. My first horse that I taught, I always picked his foot up and made him do it. And then I learned very quickly that my husband, who is also my farrier, was not cool with my horse going down on a knee every time he got his left fore picked up. So develop your command, tapping on that cannon bone, asking him to pick it up. And as they get more and more comfortable with it, you're going to ask them to start holding that. Because we're not thinking about getting on the horse for a while. We're thinking about a horse just being comfortable moving their weight backwards and coming down on a knee. So develop the command, get them comfortable where they're already thinking. You see when he picks up his foot, he's already bringing his head down because he's thinking about lowering his body. And that's great. Those are all green lights to, I think about, I'm okay with this process. So as he comes down, get him to a point where he's comfortable with going on the ground, and then hold. And then sometimes, do you see how he got right back up? You get to a point where they get comfortable where you say, no, please, I would like you to hold that position for a moment in time. And this is down again, this comes back to feel. I have to get my horse maybe 2 seconds, he's comfortable, and I read that he was comfortable for those few seconds, then I ask him for up. Because with a horse like him, that's been doing it for a while, I've had big calves that I've wanted to get on my horse and make people believe that I did it all by myself. And so I need him to get on a knee and stay there while I wrestle that calf up onto that horse with him on a knee and wait for my command for him to stand back up when I get on with the calf. So I can look like a super puncher. So here we go. We're developing our command. We've tapped, picked the leg up. He's thinking about coming down. Come down on the ground, hold. Good. And then as your horse gets more and more comfortable and you see that he's not panicking when he hits the ground, he's not wanting to hit the ground and come right back up, he's actually getting to a point where he's comfortable being on the ground and holding it, that's when you step into the saddle, you cluck, and life is good. And then this is your friend for a while because it gets to a point where you develop the command and they know to pick up. But you see, he will hold his leg up for me to get on, or for him to get into a bow. I don't really have to use the rope because he's seasoned at it. I'll show you on Punchy. Punchy's only been doing this about 2 months, really. And so I'm traveling with this rope here, and as I travel with it, I will ask him and assist him with the bow to get him into a bow, get on, and then he walks a few steps, my rope unloosens, and I put this on my saddle. So I'll go ahead and switch to Punchy and show you that.